Books of the Bible.
Different religious groups include different books in their biblical canons, in varying orders, and sometimes divide or combine books, or incorporate additional material into canonical books. Christian Bibles range from the 66 books of the Protestant canon to the 81 books of the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church canon. The Tanakh or Tanakh canon contains 24 books divided into 3 parts, the 5 books of the Torah, teaching, the Nevi'im, prophets, and the Ketuvim, writings. The first part of Christian Bibles is called the Old Testament, which contains, at minimum, the above 24 books but divided into 39 books and ordered differently, sometimes also called the Hebrew Bible. The Catholic Church and Eastern Christian churches also hold that certain deuterocanonical books and passages are part of the Old Testament canon. The second part is the New Testament, containing 27 books. The 4 canonical Gospels, Acts of the Apostles, 21 epistles or letters and the Book of Revelation. The Eastern Orthodox, Oriental Orthodox and Eastern Catholic churches may have minor differences in their lists of accepted books. The list given here for these churches is the most inclusive. If at least one Eastern church accepts the book, it is included here.
Hebrew Bible Old Testament. Hebrew Bible.
Rabbinic Judaism recognizes the 24 books of the Masoretic text, commonly called the Tanakh or Hebrew Bible, as authoritative. Evidence suggests that the process of canonization occurred between 200 BC and 200 CE. A popular former theory is that the Torah was canonized c. 400 BC, the prophet c. 200 BC, and the writing c. 100 CE, perhaps at a hypothetical Council of Jamnia, but this position is increasingly rejected by most modern scholars.
Christian Old Testament.
Protestants and Catholics use the Masoretic text as the textual basis for their translations of the protocanonical books, those accepted as canonical by both Jews and all Christians, with various changes derived from a multiplicity of other ancient sources, such as the Septuagint, the Vulgate, the Dead Sea Scrolls, etc., while generally using the Septuagint and Vulgate, now supplemented by the ancient Hebrew and Aramaic manuscripts, as the textual basis for the deuterocanonical books. The Eastern Orthodox use the Septuagint as the textual basis for the entire Old Testament in both protocanonical and deuterocanonical books, to use both in the Greek for liturgical purposes, and as the basis for translations into the vernacular. Most of the quotations, 300 of 400, of the Old Testament in the New Testament, while differing more or less from the version presented by the Masoretic text, align with that of the Septuagint.
Intertestamental books.
The intertestamental books, largely written during the intertestamental period, are called the Biblical Apocrypha, hidden things by Protestants, the Deuterocanon, second canon by Catholics, and the Deuterocanon or Anagignoscamena, worthy of reading by Orthodox. These are works recognized by the Roman Catholic, Eastern Orthodox, and Oriental Orthodox churches as being part of Scripture, and thus deuterocanonical rather than apocryphal, but Protestants do not recognize them as divinely inspired. Many other Christians recognize them as good, but not on the level of the other books of the Bible. Anglicanism considers the Apocrypha rate for example of life but not used to establish any doctrine. Luther made a parallel statement in calling them, not considered equal to the Holy Scriptures, but are useful and good to read. The difference in canons derives from the difference in the Masoretic text and the Septuagint. Books found in both the Hebrew and the Greek are accepted by all denominations, and by Jews. These are the protocanonical books. Catholics and Orthodox also accept those books present in manuscripts of the Septuagint, an ancient Greek translation of the Old Testament with a great currency among the Jews of the ancient world, with the coda that Catholics consider 3 Esdras and 3 Maccabees apocryphal. Most quotations of the Old Testament in the New Testament, differing by varying degrees from the Masoretic text, are taken from the Septuagint. When the Jews closed the Old Testament canon, 2 criteria were used: that the book be written in Hebrew or Aramaic, and that it be no younger than the time of Ezra. This process led to the 24/39 books of the Tanakh and Old Testament, Even though Daniel was written several hundred years after the time of Ezra, and since that time several books of the Septuagint have been found in the original Hebrew, in the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Cairo Geniza, and at Masada, including a Hebrew text of Sirach, Qumran, Masada, and an Aramaic text of Tobit, Qumran. The additions to Esther and Daniel are also in their respective Semitic languages. The unanimous consensus of modern and ancient scholars consider several other books, including 1 Maccabees and Judith, to have been composed in Hebrew or Aramaic. Opinion is divided on the Book of Baruch, while it is acknowledged that the Epistle of Jeremiah, the Wisdom of Solomon, and 2 Maccabees are originally Greek compositions. 1 Esdras/3 Esdras, 2 Esdras/4 Esdras, Tobit, Judith, additions to Esther, Wisdom of Solomon, Ecclesiasticus, Sirach, Baruch with the letter of Jeremiah, Song of the Three Young Men and Prayer of Azariah, Story of Susanna, Bel and the Dragon, Prayer of Manasseh, 1 Maccabees, 2 Maccabees.
Eastern Orthodox.
Additional books accepted by the Eastern Orthodox. 3 Esdras, 4 Esdras, in an appendix to the Slavonic Bible, 3 Maccabees, 4 Maccabees, in an appendix to the Greek Bible, Psalm 151, in the Septuagint.
Syrian Orthodox.
Additional books accepted by the Syrian Orthodox, due to inclusion in the Peshitta. 2 Baruch with the letter of Baruch, only the letter has achieved canonical status, Psalms 152 to 155, not canonical.
Ethiopian Orthodox.
The Ethiopian Tewahedo Church accepts all of the deuterocanonical books of Catholicism and onagignoscomena of Eastern Orthodoxy except for the 4 books of Maccabees. It accepts the 24/39 books of the Masoretic text along with the following books, called the narrow canon. The enumeration of books in the Ethiopic Bible varies greatly between different authorities and printings. 4 Baruch or the Paralipomena of Jeremiah, 1 Enoch, Jubilees, 1 Maccabean, 2 Maccabean, 3 Maccabean, the Ethiopian broader biblical canon.
Table.
The table uses the spellings and names present in modern editions of the Bible, such as the New American Bible Revised Edition, Revised Standard Version and English Standard Version. The spelling and names in both the 1609 to 1610 Dewey Old Testament, and in the 1582 Rhymes New Testament, and the 1749 revision by Bishop Challoner, the edition currently in print used by many Catholics, and the source of traditional Catholic spellings in English, and in the Septuagint differ from those spellings and names used in modern editions that derive from the Hebrew Masoretic text. For the Orthodox canon, Septuagint titles are provided in parentheses when these differ from those editions. For the Catholic canon, the Douay titles are provided in parentheses when these differ from those editions. Likewise, the King James Version references some of these books by the traditional spelling when referring to them in the New Testament, such as Isaiah's, for Isaiah. In the spirit of ecumenism, more recent Catholic translations, for example, the New American Bible, Jerusalem Bible, and ecumenical translations used by Catholics, such as the Revised Standard Version Catholic Edition, use the same standardized, King James Version, spellings and names as Protestant Bibles, for example, 1 Chronicles, as opposed to the Douay 1 Paralipomenon, 1 to 2 Samuel and 1 to 2 Kings, instead of 1 to 4 Kings, in those books universally considered canonical, the Protocanonicals. The Talmud in Bava Batra 14b gives a different order for the books in Nevi'im and Ketuvim. This order is also quoted in Mission Torah Hilchot Sefer Torah 7:15. The order of the books of the Torah are universal through all denominations of Judaism and Christianity. The disputed books, included in one canon but not in others, are often called the Biblical Apocrypha, a term that is sometimes used specifically to describe the books in the Catholic and Orthodox canons that are absent from the Jewish Masoretic text in most modern Protestant Bibles. Catholics, following the Canon of Trent, 1546, describe these books as deuterocanonical, while Greek Orthodox Christians, following the Synod of Jerusalem, 1672, use the traditional name of onagignoscomena, meaning that which is to be read. They are present in a few historic Protestant versions. The German Luther Bible included such books, as did the English 1611 King James Version. Empty table cells indicate that a book is absent from that canon. Several of the books in the Eastern Orthodox canon are also found in the appendix to the Latin Vulgate, formerly the official Bible of the Roman Catholic Church.
New Testament.
In general, among Christian denominations, the New Testament canon is an agreed-upon list of 27 books, although book order can vary. The book order is the same in the Greek Orthodox, Roman Catholic, and Protestant tradition. The Slavonic, Armenian and Ethiopian traditions have different New Testament book orders.
Chart notes.
ABCDEF for New Testament works were questioned or spoken against by Martin Luther, and he changed the order of his New Testament to reflect this, but he did not leave them out, nor has any Lutheran body since. Traditional German Luther Bibles are still printed with the New Testament in this changed Luther Bible order. ABCDEF. The Peshitta, the traditional Syriac Bible, excludes 2 Peter, 2-3 John, Jude, and Revelation, but Bibles of the modern Syriac Orthodox Church include later translations of those books. Still today the lectionary followed by the Syrian Orthodox Church present lessons from only the 22 books of Peshitta, Syro-rabbinical translations of Matthew. Most modern scholars consider the Gospel of Matthew to have been composed in Koine Greek, see language of the New Testament. According to tradition as expressed by Papias of Hierapolis, writing in the late 1st or early 2nd centuries, the Gospel was originally composed in the Hebrew dialect, which at the time was largely the related Aramaic, and then translated into Greek. Eusebius, Ecclesiastical History, 3.39.15-16. Epiphanius of Salamis, Panarion 33. According to Jerome, Hebrew manuscripts of Matthew were extant while he was translating the Vulgate. Matthew composed a Gospel of Christ at first published in Judea in Hebrew for the sake of those of the circumcision who believed, but this was afterwards translated into Greek, though by what author is uncertain. The Hebrew itself has been preserved until the present day in the library at Caesarea, which Pamphilus so diligently gathered. St. Jerome, on illustrious men,